Breaking news right now, Russia is unraveling. First, a massive earthquake tears through the Kamchatka Peninsula, then 7 volcanoes erupt at once, one of which for the first time in over 600 years. And as if that wasn't enough, Ukraine just knocked out Russia's last major oil route, and Putin, he has been completely silent. Now, this isn't just another news headline. This is a catastrophic convergence of nature, war, and economic collapse. And the timing has people across the globe asking, is this divine punishment? Is it solar triggered destruction, or maybe a warning shot from the earth itself? Now, in today's video, we're going to walk through every strike, every explosion, and every political move that just flipped the global balance of power. And I'm going to show you why Russian oil tankers are now stranded at sea, why experts are saying that the ground beneath North America could be next, and how President Trump's bold response is reshaping the entire global political map. You're going to hear how a $20,000 drone just crippled billions in infrastructure. We got some shocking reports, ladies and gentlemen, of teenagers being arrested just for firing or for filming a fire. And of course, we're going to ask the one question that nobody dares to answer out loud. Is the war ending, or is it just beginning in a way that nobody expected? Let me know if you think that we are entering into World War III in the comments. Now, this isn't just Ukraine versus Russia. This is geopolitical chess. This is tectonic terror and global economic warfare. It's all colliding at once. So I want to go ahead and get into this because what's happening right now could change everything. If you appreciate the news updates, hit the like button and subscribe. So I want to go ahead and start off with this earthquake that literally shook the map of Russia. So on July 29th, a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake hit the Kamchatka Peninsula. This is one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded in Russian history. The tremors were so powerful that they shifted the peninsula's southern landmass by nearly 2 meters, according to Russian scientists. But what followed next wasn't just geological. It felt like biblical. 7 volcanoes erupted. That's right, guys. 7 volcanoes. 7. One of them hadn't erupted in over 600 years, what scientists are calling a sleeping giant, now fully awake and spewing ash and lava 3 miles into the sky. Let me know if you recognize the relevance, the significance of the number 7 in terms of the volcanoes and how it was used many times in the Bible. Now, glaciers melted, entire towns are covered in smoke, tsunami sirens went off as far as Hawaii and parts of California. And so here's the question that's haunting and scaring a lot of analysts, every scientist and every soul watching from a distance. Was this just a tectonic coincidence or a divine signal? Because it wasn't just nature breaking loose. It was timed eerily close to Ukraine's next move. And what you're about to hear next, it might actually make you think that this earthquake wasn't the worst thing that hit Russia that night. So while Russia was still reeling from that natural disaster, Ukraine struck pretty hard. In one single night, 11 high-precision drone strikes slammed into critical Russian targets. So the Sochi oil refinery, now a blazing inferno, a military electronics plant in Penza also destroyed. Airfields used to launch Iranian-made Sash drones have been taken offline, as well as the aerial footage showing flames reaching the skies, and all of it carried out using $20,000 drones. That's right, guys. $20,000 drones taking out multi-billion-dollar targets. So while the world was watching lava flow and ash clouds from a volcano not seen in centuries, Ukraine was launching a new kind of warfare, smart, surgical, and devastating. So is this just clever strategy, or are we watching a nuclear superpower being brought down to its knees by a nation using next-gen guerrilla tech? And of course, the timing, it's impossible to ignore. I mean, earth shaking, the sky is burning, you got oil fields exploding. It's almost biblical, guys. So the question now becomes, well, what happens when the world's largest energy exporter starts running out of energy? Well, this is exactly what we need to talk about right now. So what do you think's going on here? Seriously, guys, if you're watching the show right now, let me know what you think's going on here. Is this a natural disaster, or is there something or someone behind all of this? Now, if you're ready for what happens when Russia's gas line and gasoline exports get shut down and tankers are turned away at sea, you definitely need to keep watching. The chapter exists because 2 sons watched their parents suffer through a terrible Medicare decision, and they made a promise to stop this from happening to anybody else. That story really hit home for me, which is exactly why I partnered with them. Chapter is a trusted Medicare guide that searches every plan that's out there, not just a handful like some brokers, or actually like most brokers. Nancy, who's 78 years old, she said Chapter saved her $600 a year, and that might be the difference between her staying in her home or not. And Leslie Taylor, she saved $1,000 a year. That's real relief. Now, guys, this isn't a sales call. This is a real human being helpful and helping you to understand what your options are. Do not waste another second. Pick up the phone and call right now. Numbers on the bottom of your screen, 909-563-8279, or visit them on the web at askchapter.org/Ron, and tell them Ron says hello. So following the refinery strikes and the volcanic chaos, the Russian government made a desperate move. It banned all gasoline exports. Now let that sink in for a second, okay? Russia, long dubbed as a gas station with nukes, is now hoarding fuel for itself. Why? Because they're running dangerously low, and they're not hiding it. The Kremlin admitted publicly that the export freeze was due to refinery damage, delayed repairs, European sanctions, and soaring domestic prices. Translation: the shelves are running thin, the shelves are almost empty, prices are rising, and Russia's own people are about to pay the price for a war that they didn't ask for. What really makes this worse is the timing. This is supposed to be a peak energy season, so instead of selling fuel for profit, the Kremlin is being forced to beg producers not to send shipments overseas. And so once again, Putin's government didn't act from strength, it acted because it had no other choice. Without gasoline sales, the entire Russian supply chain begins to fracture. And with crude exports under pressure too, what's left to fund the war, right? So I'm gonna get to that in just a second, but first, we need to talk about the oil that Russia is trying to sell and how even that is starting to backfire in their face. Over the last 72 hours, Russian oil tankers have been piling up off the coast of India, not because of bad weather or anything like that, not because of port delays, but because Indian companies are refusing to take the shipments. And the reason is rather simple. President Trump's secondary sanctions are working. Any country that continues doing business with Russia's war economy risks being locked out of US markets, and India is feeling that pressure today. So here's what that means. Russian oil cannot be delivered. The ships can't offload. The contracts cannot clear. So the tankers just sit full, burning fuel, nowhere to go. And they're not the only ones either. Other countries are hesitating too. So this kind of raises a much bigger question. If Russia cannot sell its fuel, who's going to bankroll what comes next? Now, with energy exports drying up, Russia's ability to finance its military is in free fall. No weapons, no wages, no logistics, no morale. And that's exactly why Ukraine's timing was flawless, because without oil revenue, even Putin's propaganda cannot plug the holes. And so now the world is watching China. Will Xi Jinping, will he stand by and aid Putin? Or will he quietly step back to protect his own Chinese economy? Well, you're about to see why that decision might define the next chapter of this war. Now, if you were in Xi Jinping's shoes, would you double down on Russia, or would you just walk away at this point? Let's now look at the deeper mystery here. The idea that something bigger may be driving these earthquakes, the eruptions, and of course, the timing behind it all. Now, we're going to go into the volcanic conspiracy theories, the solar flare data, and the question that no one dares to ask. What if this isn't just natural at all? Okay, let's talk about the timing. First, just days before the Russian earthquake and the eruption of 7 volcanoes, scientists were already sounding the alarm about something strange happening above our heads. 3 massive solar flares erupted from the sun in less than 24 hours. Now, some experts have suggested that the sun's activity, its flares and magnetic waves, can actually influence tectonic pressure on Earth. Now, others go even farther, pointing to a study out of Japan that found a measurable correlation between sunspot activity and shallow earthquakes. Now, if we combine that with the volcanic pressure in a region that hasn't erupted in centuries, is this just random, or is there a system that's in motion that we still don't fully understand? So that's the scientific take, but not everybody's stopping there, okay? Across social media, even inside of Russia, the theories are growing even louder. Divine judgment. Some say that this is punishment for the war. A failed Russian weapons test. Rumors are suggesting an underground detonation had gone wrong. Weather or even geological manipulation accusations that someone, like a person or maybe a group of people, triggered this intentionally. Now, here's the real tension. No one can prove anything, yet no one can dismiss it entirely either. So, what do you believe? Like, was this nature reacting to pressure, or are we witnessing something that was engineered, something calculated? Was this, an act of a higher power? Let's shift to something that Russia would rather that no one see at all. So in the middle of all of this chaos, a video went viral. A video filmed showing a group of teenage girls in Russia stood in front of a burning refinery, one of the very sites that were hit by a Ukrainian drone, and it was filmed to post on TikTok. There was no commentary, there were no slogans, just the backdrop of fire, smoke, and sirens. These girls posted it on TikTok. Hours later, they were arrested. The official charge? Vandalism. They're just girls. Do you really think that these girls vandalized a refinery? I don't think so. Nobody spray painted anything. No one broke any windows, but according to Russia, filming your country's failures is now considered a crime. I mean, is that just completely idiotic or what? Even more disturbing than that, these girls were minors, and still they were detained and interrogated like some adult men. I mean, like, I'm a parent. I'm just a little bit flustered right now. I just can't even imagine having daughters, which I don't have, but I do have a son. I can't imagine having daughters that are minors being interrogated by some Russian, police or military officers. It doesn't even make any sense, especially for just filming something on probably their cell phone. I mean, if this doesn't reveal the level of panic inside the Kremlin, then what does, right? So this wasn't about TikTok. It was about losing control of the narrative, because the image of Russia burning, shared online by its own citizens, it was more powerful than any speech or press release. And it wasn't just them. President Putin on the very same day signed a new law criminalizing the act of searching for extremist content online. You could literally face prison time in Russia for searching the wrong thing. Guys, that includes looking up the name Alexei Navalny, the political dissident who died mysteriously in custody. Now, you don't even need to post anything. Just searching it online can cost you thousands of rubles or your own life in prison. So in Russia, the government doesn't just control the news, it controls what you're allowed to wonder. Yeah. So ask yourself, guys, what kind of regime arrests children for watching a fire and then locks up citizens for asking questions? And more importantly, how long can a country like that survive? Now, we're going to discuss where President Trump responds firmly and, of course, explains what comes next if Russia continues down along this path. Now, if the Russian government is afraid of its own people, how confident are they really in the war that they claim to be winning? You know what I'm saying here? So I want to talk about what Trump just did while the world is shifting, and whether this is the final unraveling of Putin's grip, of the start of something. Perhaps this is the start of something even more dangerous. So while the Kremlin scrambles to control its own people and their minds and manage a disaster after disaster, President Donald J. Trump is showing a very different kind of leadership right now. So earlier this week, Trump made it very clear: if Russia refuses to honor a ceasefire by August 8th, the United States will unleash a new wave of crippling economic sanctions and tariffs, not just on Russia, but on any country aiding Russia's war economy. That includes China, India, and Brazil, nations that have helped keep Russian oil money flowing. Now, President Trump isn't just freezing assets or banning exports. He's going after the root of the funding, the money that pays Russian soldiers, builds drones, and buys loyalty. One U.S. official put it bluntly: Russia can't pay its troops without that oil money. And if that oil money stops, the war stops. But President Trump didn't just stop at the economy. In response to Dmitry Medvedev's nuclear threats, Trump authorized the deployment of 2 U.S. nuclear submarines to strategic locations, silent, undetectable, and fully armed. Guys, Trump sent in U.S. nuclear subs. Now, this wasn't a provocation. This was a message. We don't want war, according to Trump. He said, but we won't sit quietly while Russia tries to scare the world with cheap talk. The difference is night and day. While the Kremlin arrests children for posting videos and begs China for help, Trump's administration is using leverage, smart, strategic, and unshaken. And for the first time in a very long time, Putin isn't dictating the pace. He's reacting to it. Now, with territory shrinking, oil profits evaporating, and morale collapsing, Russia is turning to its most effective remaining tool: fear. For the past year, every time Ukraine receives a new support, any kind of new support, whether it's tanks, drones, missiles, Russia threatens nuclear retaliation, but nothing happens. The nukes don't launch because they're not meant to launch. They're meant to frighten Western citizens, hoping to divide public opinion and erode support for Ukraine. And it works. Clickbait headlines, anonymous intel drops, fake social media accounts flooding platforms with claims that World War III is coming or Ukraine is losing anyway, so what's the point? But these narratives aren't they're not homegrown. They're seeded, they're nurtured, and they're amplified by Russian disinformation networks targeting the West. Their goal, scare enough people so that the politicians back away, cut aid, and leave Ukraine defenseless. And this is why President Trump drew a line, not in fear, but in clarity. So no tolerance for nuclear blackmail, no silence in the face of propaganda. It's not about escalating the war. It's about stopping the manipulation before it reshapes public policy. And if Russia thinks that it can just bully America the way that it bullies its own people, it just miscalculated badly. So when a collapsing regime relies more on fear than strength, what does it say about how close they are to the end? Now, at this point, you know, it's not just one system inside Russia breaking down. It's every system at this point. The energy sector, crippled by drone strikes and export bans. The military-industrial complex burning, under-equipped, and struggling to pay its soldiers. The propaganda machine exposed and ineffective outside of its own borders. And now, even the ground itself is literally shifting beneath Russia's feet. And so after the 8.8 earthquake and the volcanic eruptions, scientists confirmed that parts of the Kamchatka Peninsula moved over 6 feet. That's not a crack in the sidewalk, guys. That is a signal from the earth that nothing is stable anymore. Russia's economy is bleeding. Its oil lifelines are being turned away at sea, and the people inside the country, they're being silenced, censored, and in many cases, they're being abandoned. Meanwhile, former allies are not going silent. China won't commit to anything long-term. India is rejecting Russian oil on the spot, and Brazil completely non-committal. So this is what happens, guys. This is what collapse looks like from the outside in or from the inside out. Depends on how you're looking at it. So when the pipelines dry up, when the world stops picking up the phone, when even nature starts acting like an enemy, the clock doesn't just start ticking, it starts screaming. And that brings us to what this is all really about and what this really means, not just for Russia, but for the rest of us. So I want to take stock here. Ukraine has just pulled off one of the most sophisticated asymmetrical offenses in modern history. With cheap drones, targeted strikes, and global support, Russia is literally choking on their own isolation. There's no oil sales, there's no credibility, there's no exit strategy. President Trump, acting with precision, he's used economic leverage and military deterrence, not fear-mongering or appeasement, to shift the global playing field. And the Earth itself, it has erupted in one of the most violent regional chain of volcanic events that we've seen in decades. And so now the world is asking one final question. Is this the moment that Russia finally breaks? Or is this the moment that something more dangerous rises from the wreckage? Now, if history teaches us anything, it's this. No empire collapses cleanly. They flail, they lie, they lash out, and in those final moments, they're most dangerous. Here's what's different this time. The world is watching. The American people are not falling for the lies. And under President Trump's leadership, the United States is acting, not reacting, with strength, strategy, and conviction. So now it's your turn. Do you believe Russia has already lost, or are we standing at the edge of a darker phase of this war? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Like this video if you want more truth without the spin. And if you're ready to see how this really ends, subscribe, stay alert, and click on the next video that YouTube is suggesting that YouTube believes you're absolutely going to love, because this isn't just about Russia anymore. This is about how the world responds when a global power loses control. We'll see you on the other side.